Maya had stopped believing in fairy tales somewhere between her second and third heartbreak. By the time she hit 32, she had a system, a foolproof method to weed out the players, the liars, and the ones who were just looking for someone to fill a temporary void in their lives. She called it her testing phase, though her best friend Rachel called it something else entirely. "You're sabotaging yourself," Rachel had said over coffee one Tuesday morning. "Not every guy is like your ex." Maya had just smiled and taken another sip of her latte. Rachel didn't understand. She'd married her high school sweetheart and never had to navigate the minefield of modern dating. She'd never had someone promise her the world while texting 3 other women behind her back. She'd never planned a future with someone only to discover they'd been planning their exit the entire time. The last one had been the worst. His name was Trevor, and he'd been perfect on paper. Good job, close to his family. Said all the right things about commitment and building something real. They'd dated for almost 2 years. Maya had let her guard down, started imagining a life together, even looked at rings when she passed jewelry stores. Then one random Thursday, she'd gone to his apartment to surprise him with dinner and found him surprising someone else instead. That was 8 months ago. Since then, Maya had refined her system. She wasn't going to be fooled again. She wasn't going to waste years of her life on someone who wasn't serious. And she definitely wasn't going to ignore the red flags just because a guy had a nice smile and knew how to send good morning texts. Rachel, despite all her warnings about sabotage, was the one who introduced her to Daniel. It happened at Rachel's husband's birthday party. Maya had almost skipped it, but Rachel had begged her to come, promising it would be low-key and fun. What Rachel had failed to mention was that she'd invited her husband's college roommate specifically to meet Maya. "Don't give me that look," Rachel whispered as she dragged Maya toward the kitchen. "He's genuinely nice. And before you ask, yes, I vetted him. Divorced, been single for 2 years, has a real job, and Tom vouches for him completely." Maya wanted to be annoyed, but she knew Rachel meant well. Besides, it was just a party. She wasn't agreeing to anything. Daniel was standing by the kitchen island talking to Tom about some renovation project. He was tall, maybe 6'1", with dark hair that was just starting to gray at the temples. He wore a simple navy sweater and jeans, and when he laughed at something Tom said, his whole face lit up. Maya felt something flutter in her chest and immediately shut it down. Attractive men were often the most dangerous ones. They knew how to use their charm like a weapon. "Daniel, this is Maya," Rachel said brightly. "Maya, Daniel. Daniel's an architect. Maya works in marketing." Daniel extended his hand and Maya shook it. His grip was firm but not aggressive. "Nice to meet you," he said, and his voice was warm. The kind of voice that could read bedtime stories or talk you through a crisis. Maya added it to her mental list of things to be suspicious about. They made small talk. He asked about her work, and she gave the standard answers about campaigns and client management. He told her about a community center he was designing on the east side of town. He seemed genuinely passionate about creating spaces that served people, not just looked impressive in photographs. It all sounded very noble and very rehearsed. Maya excused herself after 15 minutes, determined to enjoy the party without getting pulled into Rachel's matchmaking schemes. But throughout the evening, she kept noticing Daniel. He helped clean up without being asked. He listened more than he talked. When Rachel's 4-year-old spilled juice all over the floor, Daniel grabbed paper towels before anyone else even moved. He wasn't performing these actions for an audience. He just did them. As the party wound down and guests started leaving, Daniel approached Maya again. "This might be forward," he said, "but I'd really like to take you to dinner sometime. No pressure if you're not interested." Maya hesitated. Every instinct told her to say no, to protect herself, to avoid the inevitable disappointment. But there was something in the way he looked at her, patient and hopeful but ready to accept rejection gracefully, that made her pause. "Sure," she heard herself say. "Why not?" They exchanged numbers and Daniel left with a simple looking forward to it that didn't feel pushy or presumptuous. Rachel pounced the moment the door closed. "So, what do you think?" "I think it's one dinner," Maya said carefully. "We'll see." But as she drove home that night, Maya was already planning. She'd go to dinner, sure. And she'd watch carefully for the signs she'd learned to recognize. The way a man treated waitstaff revealed his character. How he talked about his ex would show whether he took responsibility or played the victim. Whether he monopolized the conversation or asked genuine questions would indicate his level of self-absorption. Daniel called her 2 days later to set up their dinner. He suggested a restaurant she'd mentioned liking during their brief conversation at the party. Maya was impressed that he'd remembered, then reminded herself that remembering details was manipulation 101. Trevor had been excellent at remembering things too, right up until he forgot he was in a committed relationship. Their first date was on a Friday. Daniel picked her up at 7, arriving exactly on time. He complimented her dress in a way that felt sincere rather than sleazy. He opened doors but didn't make a show of it. At the restaurant, he asked the hostess how her evening was going and actually listened to her answer. He ordered wine, but not excessively. He asked Maya about her life, her family, her dreams, and when she turned questions back to him, he answered honestly, including the uncomfortable parts. My divorce was rough, he admitted over the main course. We got married too young, wanted different things. I take responsibility for not seeing the signs earlier. Probably should have had harder conversations before we got to the altar. Maya filed this away. Self-awareness was good, but it could also be a performance. She'd decide later. The dinner lasted 3 hours, and when Daniel walked her to her door, he didn't try to invite himself in. He didn't even try to kiss her. He just said he'd had a wonderful time and would love to see her again if she was interested. Maya was interested despite herself. But interest wasn't trust, and trust had to be earned. Over the next few weeks, she agreed to more dates. Coffee on Sunday morning. A movie on Wednesday night. A walk through the park on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Daniel was consistent, attentive, and seemingly genuine. Which was exactly when Maya knew she needed to start testing. Because here's what she'd learned. Anyone could be nice for a few weeks. Anyone could put on a good show when everything was easy and fun. The real test came when things got complicated. When the shine wore off. When the other person's true character emerged. She'd seen too many friends ignore warning signs because they were caught up in the excitement of new romance. She'd ignored them herself with Trevor. Never again. So Maya decided it was time to see who Daniel really was beneath that kind smile and those thoughtful gestures. She would create situations that revealed character. She would test his patience, his generosity, his intentions. And if he failed, well, better to find out now than 2 years down the line when her heart was fully invested and the fall would shatter her completely. She didn't feel guilty about it. She felt smart, prepared, protected. What Maya didn't know, as she planned her first test, was that Daniel had already seen through her carefully constructed walls. He recognized the fear behind her eyes because he'd seen it in his own mirror, and he had his own ideas about what needed to be tested. The first test came on their 4th date. Maya had it all planned out. They were supposed to meet at an Italian restaurant downtown at 7. At 6:55, she called Daniel. "Hey," she said, injecting just the right amount of embarrassment into her voice. "I'm so sorry, but I completely forgot my wallet at home. I'm already here at the restaurant. Do you mind if we reschedule?" She waited for the response she'd heard before from other men. The subtle guilt trip. The joke that wasn't really a joke about her being scatterbrained. The suggestion that maybe she should go home and get it while he waited. Some variation of annoyance that would show his true colors. "Don't worry about it at all," Daniel said easily. "I'm pulling up right now. I'll take care of dinner. Just relax and order whatever you want." Maya frowned. "That was almost too smooth. Are you sure?" "I feel terrible. Honestly, it's not a big deal. These things happen. I left my phone in an Uber last week and didn't realize until I got home. We all have those moments." He arrived at the restaurant 2 minutes later, and when he sat down, there wasn't a trace of irritation on his face. No tight smile. No passive-aggressive comments. He just picked up his menu and asked if she'd been waiting long. Throughout dinner, Maya kept waiting for him to bring it up, to make some comment about it. He never did. When the check came, he paid without hesitation and never mentioned the wallet incident again. Not that night, not ever. Test 1 passed. But Maya wasn't convinced. Anyone could be generous with money once or twice. Test 2 came the following week. It was a Tuesday night, almost 11:30. Maya knew Daniel had an early meeting the next morning because he'd mentioned it during their last phone call. She waited until 11:25, then dialed his number. He answered on the 3rd ring, voice alert. "Hey, is everything okay?" "I'm so sorry to call so late," Maya said. "My car broke down on Highway 47 near the old factory district. I called roadside assistance, but they said it'll be at least 2 hours. I didn't know who else to call." There was a brief pause and Maya held her breath. This was the moment. This was where most guys would offer some excuse or suggest she call an Uber, or maybe offer to help in the morning when it was more convenient. Stay in your car with the doors locked, Daniel said, and she could hear movement in the background. I'm leaving right now. Send me your exact location. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Daniel, you don't have to. Maya, it's not safe for you to be stranded out there alone at night. I'm already grabbing my keys. Just send me the PIN. He arrived in 18 minutes. Maya, who was actually parked safely in a well-lit grocery store parking lot around the corner from her apartment, felt a twinge of guilt when she saw his car pull up. He got out quickly, looking around with concern until he spotted her. You okay? He asked, walking over to check on her. Yeah. I'm fine, she said. And then, because she had to commit to the story, she added, I think it might be the battery. Daniel popped her hood and looked at the engine with a flashlight he'd brought from his car. He checked the battery connections, asked her to try starting it, and when it started perfectly fine, he looked puzzled. That's weird, he said. It seems to be working now. Maybe it was just a fluke. Yeah, maybe, Maya said, feeling worse about the lie by the second. I'm sorry I dragged you out here for nothing. Don't apologize. I'm just glad you're safe. Do you want me to follow you home to make sure you get there okay? He followed her home. Waited until she was inside. Sent a text 10 minutes later just saying, sleep well. Glad everything worked out. Test 2, passed. But Maya reminded herself that grand gestures were easy. It was the small everyday things that really mattered. So she arranged test 3. She invited Daniel to a dinner party at her friend Keisha's house. Keisha was known for being direct to the point of bluntness, and her husband Jerome was a lawyer who liked to debate. Maya had seen them reduce more than one of her previous boyfriends to uncomfortable silence or defensive anger. Daniel arrived at the dinner party with a bottle of wine and flowers for the hostess. Keisha raised an eyebrow at Maya as if to say, this one has manners. Jerome started in before they'd even finished their appetizers. So Daniel, Maya tells us you're an architect. Interesting field. Do you ever feel like you're just helping rich people build monuments to their own egos? Maya tensed, waiting for Daniel to get defensive. Instead, he laughed. Sometimes, yeah, he admitted. That's why I try to balance commercial projects with community work. I'm working with a nonprofit right now on affordable housing designs, trying to create spaces that are dignified and beautiful without being expensive to build. It's challenging but rewarding. Jerome nodded, seeming satisfied, but Keisha wasn't done. Maya's had some rough experiences with dating, she said bluntly, ignoring Maya's glare. What makes you different from all the other guys who seemed nice at first? Daniel didn't miss a beat. I don't know if I am different, he said honestly. I can't predict the future or promise I'll never make mistakes. All I can say is that I'm here because I genuinely enjoy Maya's company, and I'm not interested in playing games or wasting anyone's time. My divorce taught me that life's too short for anything less than honesty. Keisha studied him for a long moment, then smiled. Good answer. The rest of the evening went smoothly. Daniel asked Jerome about his legal work and seemed genuinely interested in the answers. He helped clear plates without being asked. He laughed at Keisha's stories and contributed his own. When one of the other guests made a slightly offensive joke, Daniel didn't laugh, just smoothly changed the subject. On the drive home, Maya was quiet, processing. Your friends are great, Daniel said. Keisha doesn't pull punches, does she? No, she doesn't. Does that bother you? Why would it? I appreciate people who say what they mean. It's refreshing. Test 3, passed. Maya was running out of subtle tests, but she wasn't ready to trust yet. So she tried smaller things. She was deliberately late to their next date by 20 minutes. Daniel didn't complain, just said he'd used the time to answer some work emails. She canceled plans at the last minute, claiming she wasn't feeling well. He showed up at her door an hour later with soup and ginger tea, left them on her doorstep with a note saying he hoped she felt better and didn't impose on her space. With each test, Daniel passed effortlessly. It was almost frustrating. Maya kept waiting for the crack in the facade, for the moment when his patience would wear thin or his true character would emerge. It never came, but something else was happening that Maya hadn't anticipated. Daniel was watching her, really watching her, and he was starting to ask questions that made her uncomfortable. They were having coffee one Sunday morning when he said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," Maya said, stirring her latte. "Why do you do that thing where you test people?" Maya's hand froze mid-stir. "What are you talking about?" Daniel's expression was gentle, not accusatory. The forgotten wallet. The late-night car emergency. Being late without explanation. The dinner with your most intimidating friends. These aren't coincidences, Maya. Her heart was pounding. She felt exposed. Caught in a lie she hadn't realized was so obvious. I don't know what. It's okay. Daniel interrupted softly. I'm not upset. I understand why you do it. I used to do the same thing. Maya looked up, meeting his eyes.
You did? He nodded.
After my divorce, I was a mess. I didn't trust anyone, especially not myself, to make good choices about partners. So I started testing people too, creating little scenarios to see how they'd react, trying to catch them being their worst selves before they could hurt me. What changed? Maya asked quietly. I realized I was so busy testing people that I wasn't actually connecting with them. I was keeping myself safe, sure. But I was also keeping myself alone. The tests became walls, and the walls became a prison. Maya felt something uncomfortable twist in her chest. So what did you do? I stopped testing and started trusting. Not blindly, not stupidly. But I decided that I'd rather risk getting hurt again than guarantee I'd never really know anyone. There was a long silence. Maya took a sip of her coffee, buying time to process. That doesn't scare you? She finally asked. Being that vulnerable? It terrifies me, Daniel admitted. But you know what scares me more? Reaching the end of my life and realizing I spent it protecting myself from experiences instead of having them. He reached across the table and gently took her hand. Maya, I'm not asking you to stop being cautious. And I'm not saying you should trust me completely right now, but maybe you could try trusting yourself. Trust that you're smart enough to recognize real red flags. Trust that you're strong enough to survive if things don't work out. Maya wanted to pull her hand away, to deflect with humor, to change the subject. Instead, she left her hand in his and said, I don't know if I can. That's okay too, Daniel said. We can figure it out together. But as they left the coffee shop and walked through the park, Maya noticed something that made her uncomfortable. Daniel was asking her questions. Not surface-level getting-to-know-you questions, but deeper ones. What's your biggest fear? He asked. Being made a fool of, Maya answered before she could stop herself. What does that mean to you? She hesitated. Investing in someone who isn't investing in me. Believing in something that isn't real. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. When was the last time you let yourself be completely honest with someone about how you feel? Maya couldn't answer that. She realized she couldn't remember. She was always performing, always testing, always protecting. 2 weeks after their conversation at the coffee shop, Daniel invited Maya to his apartment for dinner. He wanted to cook for her, he said. Something homemade and relaxed. Maya agreed, though she felt oddly nervous about it. Somehow, being in his personal space felt more intimate than all their public dates combined. His apartment was on the 3rd floor of a converted warehouse building. It was exactly what she'd expected from an architect. Clean lines, lots of natural light, furniture that was both functional and beautiful. But what surprised her were the personal touches. Photos of family on the shelves, a well-worn cookbook on the counter, a guitar in the corner that looked like it was actually played. Not just displayed. I didn't know you played, Maya said, gesturing to the guitar. Not well, Daniel said with a smile, handing her a glass of wine. But I enjoy it. My dad taught me when I was a kid. It's relaxing after a long day. He'd made pasta from scratch, which impressed Maya despite herself. As he cooked, they talked about work, about a documentary he'd watched, about a trip she was planning to visit her sister. It felt easy and comfortable, and that made Maya nervous. When things felt too good, that's usually when they fell apart. They ate dinner at his small dining table by the window. The food was delicious. The conversation flowed naturally. And then, just as Maya was starting to relax, Daniel set down his fork and looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. I need to be honest with you about something, he said. Maya's stomach dropped. Here it comes, she thought. The other shoe dropping. The revelation that would explain why he'd been too good to be true. Okay, she said carefully. I know you've been testing me, Daniel said. We talked about that. But what I didn't say is that I've been testing you too. Maya blinked. What? Not in the same way, he clarified quickly. I haven't set up fake scenarios or anything like that, but I have been watching how you show up in this relationship. And I've noticed something. What have you noticed? Maya asked, her voice coming out more defensive than she intended. You're not really here, Daniel said gently. You're present physically, but emotionally, you're holding back. You're so focused on looking for problems that you're not allowing yourself to experience anything real. Maya felt heat rising in her cheeks. That's not fair. I've been performing, Daniel interrupted. You've been performing the role of someone in a relationship, but you haven't actually let me see who you really are. You don't know that, Maya said. But even as she spoke, she knew he was right. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Tell me something true, he said. Something you're afraid to say. Something that makes you vulnerable. Maya opened her mouth, then closed it. Her mind raced through possible responses, automatically filtering for what would sound good, what would make her seem interesting but not damaged, open but not desperate. See? Daniel said softly. You're calculating right now, trying to figure out the right answer instead of just being honest. Because honesty gets you hurt, Maya shot back. Because being vulnerable means giving someone the ammunition to destroy you. Or it means giving someone the chance to really know you. Maya stood up abruptly, walking to the window. The city lights stretched out below them, thousands of lives in thousands of apartments, all playing out their own complicated stories. My ex told me he loved me the night before I found him cheating, she said finally, her back still to Daniel. We'd talked about getting married. I'd shown him every part of myself. The good, the bad, the embarrassing, all of it. I thought that's what love was supposed to be. Complete honesty. Complete trust. She turned around to face him. And then I found out he'd been lying to me for months. Maybe longer. Everything I thought was real was just a story I was telling myself. So forgive me if I'm not in a hurry to make that mistake again. Daniel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he got up and walked over to her. But he didn't try to touch her or comfort her. I'm sorry that happened to you, he said. That's a terrible betrayal. But Maya, you're punishing me for something he did. I'm protecting myself. You're hiding, Daniel corrected gently. There's a difference. Maya felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back angrily. Why does it matter to you? Why can't we just keep things light and easy? Because light and easy isn't real, Daniel said. And I'm not interested in pretending. I've done that before in my marriage. We both pretended everything was fine when it wasn't. We kept things surface level to avoid conflict. And eventually we realized we were strangers living in the same house. He took a breath. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to be with someone who's only showing me the parts they think I want to see. I want the real thing, or I want nothing at all. Maya felt something crack inside her chest. What if the real me isn't enough? What if it is? Daniel countered. They stood there for a long moment, the question hanging between them. I don't know how to do this, Maya admitted quietly. I don't know how to be the person you're asking me to be. I'm not asking you to be anyone, Daniel said. I'm asking you to stop pretending. To stop hiding behind tests and walls and carefully curated versions of yourself. He moved closer, and this time he did take her hand. I'll go first, he said. I'll show you how it works. And then Daniel started talking. Really talking. He told her about his divorce, not the sanitized version he'd shared on their first date, but the painful, messy truth. He talked about how he'd ignored problems in his marriage for years because he was afraid of conflict. How he'd convinced himself things would get better if he just tried harder, was more patient, more understanding. How he'd finally realized that trying to save a relationship by himself was like trying to clap with one hand. He told her about the depression that followed the divorce. The nights he'd sat alone in his apartment wondering if he'd ever feel normal again. The way he'd thrown himself into work because it was easier than dealing with his feelings. The slow, difficult process of rebuilding his sense of self. I'm telling you this, he said, not because I want your sympathy, but because I want you to see that I'm not perfect. I'm not some idealized version of a man who has it all together. I'm just a person who's been hurt and scared and is choosing to try again anyway. Maya listened and something in her softened. This wasn't the carefully constructed persona she'd been waiting to crack. This was genuine vulnerability, and it was terrifying and brave and deeply uncomfortable to witness. Your turn, Daniel said. Maya took a shaky breath. I'm scared all the time, she said. That's the truth. I'm scared that I'm not enough, that no one will ever really choose me, that I'll end up alone because I'm too damaged or too difficult or too much work. The words came faster now, like a dam breaking. I test people because it gives me control. If I can find the flaw first, if I can predict the ending, Then it doesn't hurt as much when it falls apart, and it always falls apart. Because you make sure it does, Daniel said. Maya felt anger flare. That's not true, Daniel finished. Maya, you're so busy looking for reasons to end things that you never give anything a chance to begin. You sabotage relationships before they can hurt you. At least I don't get destroyed, Maya said. No, you just destroy the possibility of anything real before it can develop. They were standing close now, almost toe-to-toe, and Maya could feel her heart racing. Part of her wanted to leave, to run away from this conversation and never look back. But a bigger part, a part she'd been trying to ignore, knew that Daniel was right. I don't know how to stop, she whispered. Start by staying, Daniel said. When your instinct tells you to run, stay. When you want to create distance, choose closeness. When you want to hide, choose honesty. What if I fail? Then you fail. We both might fail. That's the risk. Maya looked up at him, and for the first time in months, maybe years, she let her walls drop completely. She let him see the fear and the loneliness and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be different. I'm really scared, she said, and her voice cracked on the words. Me too, Daniel admitted. But I'd rather be scared with someone than safe and alone. He reached up and gently wiped a tear from her cheek, and Maya realized she was crying. Not the pretty, delicate tears of movies, but real, messy human crying. And Daniel didn't flinch. He just pulled her into a hug and let her be exactly as she was. They stood like that for a long time. Eventually, they moved to the couch. Daniel made tea and they talked until almost midnight. Maya told him about her family, about her father leaving when she was young, about the pattern she'd noticed in her relationships of choosing men who were emotionally unavailable. Daniel told her about his fears of repeating his parents' contentious marriage, about his struggle to balance career ambition with personal life, about the loneliness of starting over in your 30s. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't easy. But it was real in a way nothing else had been. And by the time Maya left that night, something fundamental had shifted between them. The next few weeks felt different. Maya was trying, really trying, to be more open, more present. She'd catch herself starting to create distance and would force herself to do the opposite. When Daniel asked her questions, she answered honestly instead of calculating the perfect response. When he shared something vulnerable, she shared something back. It was exhausting. Being genuine required constant vigilance against her own defense mechanisms. Every instinct told her to protect herself, to maintain some emotional distance, to keep an exit strategy ready. But she kept choosing to stay open, kept choosing trust over fear. Daniel seemed to notice the shift. He held her hand more often, texted her random thoughts throughout the day, made plans weeks in advance instead of keeping things casual. Maya felt herself getting attached, felt her heart opening in ways that terrified her, but she didn't run until the day her mother called. It was a Wednesday afternoon. Maya was at work when her sister's number flashed on her phone. They didn't usually talk during business hours, so Maya answered immediately. It's Mom, her sister Beth said without preamble. She's in the hospital. They think it might be her heart. The world tilted. Maya's mother was only 63, active and healthy. This couldn't be happening. I'm on my way, Maya said, already grabbing her bag. The next 72 hours were a blur. Her mother had experienced a significant cardiac event. The doctors used careful language that scared Maya more than direct words would have. Tests, monitors, specialists, medication adjustments. Beth flew in from Denver. Their younger brother couldn't get time off work but called every few hours for updates. Maya slept in uncomfortable hospital chairs, survived on vending machine coffee and granola bars, and tried to be strong for her mother who looked small and fragile in the hospital bed. She didn't call Daniel. She didn't call anyone except family. This was her crisis to handle, her burden to carry. She didn't need anyone's help. On the second night, around 9 in the evening, Maya was sitting alone in the waiting room. Beth had gone to the hotel to shower and rest. Their mother was sleeping. Maya was staring at her phone, scrolling through meaningless social media posts, trying not to think about the possibility of losing her mom. Then Daniel walked into the waiting room. Maya looked up, confused. What are you doing here? Rachel told me, he said simply. About your mom. I didn't ask you to come. I know. He sat down beside her and Maya noticed he'd brought a real coffee from an actual coffee shop, not the terrible hospital stuff. He handed it to her. You don't need to stay. Maya said, even as she gratefully accepted the coffee. I'm fine. Daniel didn't argue. He just sat there quietly present. After a few minutes, Maya's carefully maintained composure started to crack. They won't tell me if she's going to be okay, she said, her voice breaking. They keep using phrases like cautiously optimistic and taking it day by day. I need them to promise me she'll be fine, and they won't. Daniel took her hand. Because they can't. Sometimes there aren't guarantees. Maya knew he was right, but knowing didn't make it easier. She leaned her head on his shoulder just for a moment, letting herself take comfort from his presence. They sat like that for an hour. Daniel didn't try to fix anything or offer empty platitudes. He just stayed. When Beth returned, Daniel offered to get them both food from somewhere other than the cafeteria. He came back with Thai food from a restaurant near the hospital, remembering that Maya had mentioned it was her comfort food. He made sure Beth ate too, chatted with her briefly about her flight and her kids, then quietly excused himself. I'll come back tomorrow, he told Maya, unless you don't want me to. You don't have to, Maya said automatically. I know, Daniel said, but I want to. If that's okay. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. He came back the next day. And the day after that, he brought coffee and food and books. He sat with Maya during the long stretches of waiting. He made her laugh when she needed distraction and stayed silent when she needed to cry. He charmed the nurses and brought Beth care packages. He never made it about himself or acted like he was putting himself out. By day 5, Maya's mother had stabilized enough to be moved out of ICU. The crisis had passed. She would need lifestyle changes and medication, but she was going to be okay. Maya felt like she could breathe again. That night, back at her apartment for the first time in almost a week, Maya stood in the shower and let herself fall apart. All the fear and stress and exhaustion crashed over her. She cried until there were no tears left. Until she was just exhausted and empty. When she got out, there were texts from Daniel checking in. She didn't respond. Instead, she lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling raw and exposed and terrified. Because Daniel had shown up, he'd stayed. He'd been exactly who she needed him to be, and that scared her more than anything. She'd let him in. Really fully in. She'd leaned on him, depended on him, trusted him to be there, and he had been. But now all she could think about was what would happen when he left. When he realized she was too much work, too damaged, too needy. When he got tired of her constantly expecting the worst, the thought was unbearable. She couldn't go through another betrayal, another abandonment. She'd rather end it now, on her terms, before he had the chance to hurt her. By the next morning, Maya had convinced herself that pushing Daniel away was the smart thing to do. The self-protective thing. She couldn't let herself need him this much. It was dangerous. It made her vulnerable. It gave him too much power to hurt her. When Daniel called that afternoon asking if he could come over, Maya was ready. He arrived with groceries to make her dinner. You haven't been eating properly, he said. Let me take care of you. And that was exactly the problem. Maya didn't want to be taken care of. She didn't want to need anyone that much. She didn't want to feel this grateful, this dependent, this vulnerable. We need to talk, she said. Daniel set down the groceries, his expression shifting. Okay. This isn't working, Maya said, the words coming out harder than she intended. This relationship. It's not what I want. Daniel was quiet for a moment. What changed? Nothing changed. That's the problem. You're too perfect, too understanding, too available. It's not real. No one is actually like this. Maya, no, let me finish. She was pacing now, needing movement to deal with the anxiety coursing through her. You showed up at the hospital without being asked. You stayed for days. You took care of me and my sister. You did all the right things. And that's exactly the problem. I don't understand, Daniel said, and he genuinely looked confused. Are you upset that I was there for you? I'm upset that I needed you there. Maya exploded. I'm upset that I let myself depend on you. I'm upset that you've wormed your way past all my defenses and now you have the power to completely destroy me. So your solution is to destroy it first? My solution is to protect myself before you inevitably disappoint me or leave or prove that all this is just an act. Daniel's face hardened in a way Maya had never seen before. Is that really what you think? That I spent a week at a hospital pretending to care about you? That every moment we've shared has been me performing some elaborate deception? People always leave, Maya said, and she hated how her voice cracked. They promise they won't, but they do. My dad left, my ex left. Everyone leaves eventually. So you're going to make sure I leave now before you get more attached? That's your plan? At least this way I'm in control of when it ends. Daniel stood up and Maya could see he was angry now. Really angry. Not the explosive, scary kind of anger, but the quiet, disappointed kind that somehow hurt worse. You know what, Maya? You're right. This isn't working, but not for the reasons you think. He moved toward the door. I can't be in a relationship with someone who's just waiting for me to fail. Someone who's so convinced they're going to get hurt that they'll burn everything down to prove themselves right. See? Maya said bitterly. I knew you'd leave eventually. Daniel stopped, his hand on the doorknob. He turned back to face her, and his expression was sad rather than angry now. I'm not leaving because I want to, he said quietly. I'm leaving because you're pushing me out. You're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're so afraid of being abandoned that you're making it happen. Then go, Maya said, even though her heart was screaming at her to stop, to take it back, to apologize. I don't need you. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Yes, you do. That's the whole problem. You need someone, and that terrifies you. But Maya, needing people isn't weakness. It's being human. And refusing to need anyone doesn't make you strong. It just makes you alone. He opened the door, then paused. I love you, he said. That's the truth. I love you, the real you, not some perfect version, but the scared, damaged, defensive version who pushes people away.
I love you anyway.
But I can't make you believe that. And I can't be in a relationship where I'm constantly trying to prove I'm not going to hurt you. Maya wanted to say something, wanted to run to him, wanted to take back everything she'd said, but fear held her frozen in place. If you change your mind, Daniel said, if you decide you're willing to actually try, I'll be here, but I won't wait forever. I deserve someone who wants to fight for this as much as I do. Then he left, closing the door quietly behind him. Maya stood there, alone in her apartment, and realized what she'd done. She'd pushed away the best thing that had happened to her in years. She'd proven her own worst fears right, not because Daniel had failed her, but because she'd failed herself. She sank to the floor and cried, knowing she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed replaying the fight, hearing Daniel's words over and over. He'd said he loved her. In the middle of her pushing him away, sabotaging everything, proving all her worst theories about herself, he'd said he loved her, and she'd let him walk out the door. By morning, she felt hollowed out and exhausted. She called in sick to work, something she almost never did, and spent the day on her couch wrapped in a blanket. Her phone stayed silent. Daniel didn't call or text. She didn't blame him. Rachel called around noon. I heard, she said without preamble. Daniel told Tom, what were you thinking? I was thinking I was protecting myself, Maya said dully. By destroying the best relationship you've ever had? You don't understand. No, you don't understand, Rachel interrupted. Maya, I love you. You're my best friend. But you're sabotaging yourself. You're so scared of getting hurt that you hurt yourself first. Do you know how backward that is? Maya did know. She'd realized it somewhere around 3 a.m. staring at her ceiling, but knowing and fixing were two different things. I don't know how to change, Maya admitted. This is who I've always been. That's not true. You weren't always this scared. You used to be brave. You used to believe in love. Yeah, you got hurt, and that sucks. But Maya, everyone gets hurt eventually. That's life. You can't protect yourself from pain without also protecting yourself from joy. After Rachel hung up, Maya sat with those words. When had she stopped being brave? When had she decided that being safe was more important than being happy? She thought about her mother in the hospital, how fragile life suddenly seemed, how quickly things could change, how much time she'd wasted protecting herself from theoretical pain while missing out on actual happiness. That evening, Maya drove to her mother's hospital room. Her mom was sitting up, looking much better, working on a crossword puzzle. You look terrible, her mother said bluntly. What's wrong? Maya sat down heavily. I ruined things with Daniel. Her mother set down the puzzle. The one who was here all week? Maya nodded. Tell me what happened. So Maya did. She explained everything. The testing, the walls, the fight, Daniel's declaration of love, and her complete inability to handle it. Her mother listened without interrupting, and when Maya finished, she was quiet for a moment. Your father leaving really did a number on you, didn't it? Her mother said finally. Maya blinked. They rarely talked about her father. He'd left when Maya was 13, disappeared into a new life with barely a backward glance. Her mother had never spoken badly of him, but she'd never really acknowledged the impact either. I always thought you were handling it fine, her mother continued. You were so strong, so independent. I was proud of you for not falling apart. But maybe I should have helped you process it instead of praising you for being tough. Mom, let me finish. What your father did was terrible. He abandoned his family. He chose his own wants over his responsibilities. And that hurt you deeply. But honey, not every man is your father. And punishing every man you meet for his sins isn't fair to them or to you. I'm not, Maya started, then stopped. Because that's exactly what she'd been doing, wasn't it? Every test, every wall, every expectation of abandonment, it all traced back to a 13-year-old girl whose father left without explanation. Daniel sounds like a good man, her mother said. The kind who shows up. The kind who stays. Are you really going to throw that away because you're scared? What if he leaves eventually anyway? What if he doesn't? What if you push away the love of your life because you're too afraid to find out? Maya felt tears sliding down her cheeks. What if I already did? Her mother reached out and took her hand. Then you apologize. You tell him the truth. You fight for what you want instead of running away from it. What if it's too late? Only one way to find out. Maya drove home in a daze, her mother's words echoing in her head. When she got back to her apartment, she finally let herself think about what Daniel had said before he left. He'd said he'd be there if she changed her mind, if she was willing to really try, but he wouldn't wait forever. How much time did she have? How many chances did a person get to fix their mistakes? She picked up her phone a dozen times that night, typed messages, and deleted them. Everything she wanted to say felt inadequate. I'm sorry didn't cover it. I was wrong didn't explain enough. I love you too felt like too little, too late. By the next morning, Maya realized that whatever she said wouldn't be perfect. But saying nothing was worse. She needed to do this in person, needed Daniel to see her face, to know she meant every word. She showed up at his apartment building at 8 on Saturday morning. Too early for a weekend, but she couldn't wait any longer. She stood outside his door for a full 5 minutes, gathering courage before finally knocking. Daniel answered after a moment, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair messy from sleep. He looked surprised to see her. Maya? I know it's early, she said quickly. And I know I don't deserve your time after what I did. But I need to talk to you, please. Daniel hesitated and Maya's heart sank, but then he stepped aside, letting her in. His apartment looked the same but somehow different. Or maybe she was different. She stood awkwardly in the living room, suddenly unsure where to start. Do you want coffee? Daniel offered. No, I need to say this before I lose my nerve. Maya took a deep breath. You were right. About everything. I was sabotaging us. I was so convinced you'd eventually leave that I made it happen myself. I pushed you away because that felt safer than risking being abandoned again. Daniel listened, his expression unreadable. My dad left when I was 13, Maya continued. Just walked out one day and started a new family like we never existed. And I think some part of me has been waiting for every man since then to do the same thing. I've been testing people, looking for proof that they'll leave, because when you expect the worst, it hurts less when it happens. She moved closer to him. But with you, I didn't want to find the worst. I wanted you to be different. And you were. You passed every test. You showed up when I needed you. You were patient with my walls and gentle with my fears, and that terrified me more than anything. Why? Daniel asked quietly. Because if you were real, if this was real, then I could lose something that actually mattered, and that felt unbearable. Maya's voice cracked. But you know what's actually unbearable? Losing you because I was too afraid to try. Destroying something beautiful because I couldn't believe I deserved it. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. What are you saying, Maya? I'm saying I love you. I love you and I'm scared, and I don't know if I'll ever stop being scared. But I want to try. Really try. Not the half-committed, one-foot-out-the-door version of trying. I want to fight for us. I want to choose trust over fear. I want to believe in this. Even though it's risky, especially because it's risky. You were right. Refusing to need anyone doesn't make me strong. It just makes me alone, and I'm tired of being alone. Daniel studied her face and Maya held her breath. She'd laid herself completely bare. No walls, no defenses, no carefully crafted responses. Just honesty, raw and vulnerable and terrifying. I need to know you mean this, Daniel said finally. That you're not going to panic again in a few weeks and push me away. Because Maya, I meant what I said. I love you, but I can't be in a relationship where I'm constantly waiting for you to bolt. I know, and I can't promise I won't get scared again. I probably will. But I can promise that instead of running, I'll talk to you. Instead of pushing you away, I'll tell you what I'm feeling. Instead of testing you, I'll trust you. And if I mess up, because I will. Nobody's perfect. Then we'll figure it out together. Like adults. Like partners. Maya managed a small smile. I'm done looking for reasons to end things. I want to look for reasons to stay. Daniel was quiet and Maya could see him processing, weighing her words against her actions. She didn't blame him for hesitating. She'd hurt him. She'd pushed him away when he'd been nothing but good to her. Why should he believe this time would be different? My therapist says I have trust issues, Maya said, and Daniel's eyebrows rose slightly. Yeah, I made an appointment yesterday. First session is next week. I figure if I'm serious about changing, I need help. I can't just willpower my way out of patterns I've spent years building. Something softened in Daniel's expression. That's a big step. It's terrifying. But you know what I realized? Everything worthwhile is terrifying. Loving someone is terrifying. Being vulnerable is terrifying. But the alternative, staying safe and alone, that's more terrifying to me now. Daniel took a step closer. I was really hurt, Maya. When you pushed me away after I'd spent all week at that hospital after I'd shown you every part of myself. That hurt. I know. I'm so sorry. But I also understand why you did it. And I've been thinking about what you said. About needing control over when things end. I get that. After my divorce, I felt the same way. So where does that leave us? Daniel reached out and took her hands. It leaves us with a choice. We can both keep protecting ourselves, keep our walls up, and guarantee we'll never get hurt again. Or we can choose each other, knowing it's a risk, knowing we might fail but believing it's worth trying. I choose you, Maya said without hesitation. I choose us. I choose the risk and the fear and the possibility of getting hurt, because the possibility of loving you and being loved by you is worth all of that. Daniel pulled her closer. I choose you too. But Maya, we have to communicate. If you're scared, tell me. If you're feeling overwhelmed, tell me. If your old patterns are kicking in, tell me. Don't suffer in silence and then push me away. I promise. And you have to promise the same thing. If I'm too much, if you need space, if something isn't working, tell me. Don't just accommodate my issues and pretend everything's fine. Deal. They stood there, foreheads touching, and Maya felt something shift inside her. Not the fear disappearing entirely, she suspected that would take time and work, but the willingness to feel it and stay anyway. The courage to be vulnerable. The choice to trust, so what now? She asked. Now we try again. For real this time. No tests, no walls, no games. Just two people who are scared and damaged and choosing each other anyway. Maya kissed him, and it felt different from every other kiss they'd shared. It felt like a beginning instead of a countdown to an ending. It felt like hope. Over the following months, it wasn't always easy. Maya had moments where old patterns surfaced, where she wanted to create distance or test Daniel's commitment. But she kept her promise. She talked about her fears instead of acting on them. She let Daniel see her at her worst and discovered he didn't leave. She went to therapy every week and slowly started to understand how her past was shaping her present.